We'll start off with a little story here. Talks about Mr. and Mrs. Brown. They had 2 sons. One was named Mind Your Own Business, and the other was named Trouble. One day, the 2 boys decided to play hide and seek. Trouble hid while Mind Your Own Business counted to 100. Mind Your Own Business began looking for his brother behind garbage cans and bushes. Then he started looking in and under cars until a policeman approached him and asked, "What are you doing?" He said, "Playing a game," the boy replied. "What is your name?" the officer questioned. "Mind Your Own Business." Furious, the policeman inquired, "Are you looking for trouble?" The boy replied, "Why, yes." Bad jokes. Anyway, for those of you that missed my Civil War presentation and you would like to see it, or if you know somebody that missed it, I will be giving it again on the 16th of July over in Boise at the Library of Cool and Acoustic. There's a subgroup of the Idaho Genealogy Society over there called the Dead Relative Collectors. And the person that's organized that group wants to try to get people, energized and, out of COVID and coming to meetings again. So she asked if I would give the presentation over there. So I'm going to do that for her. So if you know anybody who wants to see it, that's where it is. Hopefully everybody's got a name tag set up so we know who everybody is. Any questions from last month? Anything? I want to pass these around. This is just another example of a family group sheet to put individual families on. This one's from the U.S. Archives. The kids on this one will go on the second page. But it's just another example of a family group sheet, if anybody's interested there. I also have other copies of sheets up here if you want another pedigree chart or family group records or whatever. I have more copies up here if you'd like one. Going around. So up on the screen right now, this is some of my peeps. This is my great-great-grandmother, Lydia Rachel Baird, and then this is actually her parents. So this is my second great-grandmother. These are my third great-grandparents right here. They were in Pennsylvania, central Pennsylvania. Benjamin and Rachel, they stayed in Pennsylvania, and of course they died and are buried out there in Pennsylvania. My great-great-grandmother, though, she and my great-great-grandfather got a divorce, and she got $600 and a gun, and went out to, she was going to go out to Oregon, but she got sidetracked in Kansas because her daughter was deathly sick there, and she went there and her daughter died. So she helped raise grandkids in Kansas for about 8 years, and then she finally moved out to Oregon, and she's buried out in Oregon. So just to give you a little bit of idea, yeah, you can find pictures of your peeps. You just got to dig a little bit.
So were those given to you by family, or did you find them elsewhere?
No, I found them on websites, searching around online on websites.
Okay.
What area of Pennsylvania was that?
It's in central Pennsylvania, Clearfield County. If you know where Clearfield County is.
I have a whole lot of family.
I'm from York County
Oh, okay.
originally.
Yeah, my relatives, early on, they moved out to Northumberland County, which was one of the original counties of Pennsylvania. And then in 1823, they moved out to Clearfield County, Pennsylvania. And I have a family cemetery back there that's got my great-grandfather, my great-great-grandfather, my great-great-great-grandfather, my great-great-great-great-grandfather, all buried in it, which I can show you tonight a little bit. But
Which town in Clearfield?
huh?
Which town in Clearfield?
Well, it's by a little town called Westover.
Okay.
Do you know where
Oh,
Westover?
I'm from Pennsylvania, so.
Oh, all right.
And I've got.
Close to
Clarion-
Mahaffey.
Yeah,
You're
Clearfield,
from where?
Clarion,
Yeah.
all of that.
Where did you say you're from, Verna?
I'm from Pittsburgh
Oh,
originally.
are you?
Yeah. But western Pennsylvania, central Pennsylvania.
Yeah. I'm right across the river from Harrisburg.
Okay, yeah.
So, we didn't quite get to it last week, but I want to kind of go over FamilySearch.org with you guys. Let's see if I can get to it here. Close that. See if I can get online. I gotta remember what my password is, that's the hardest part. FamilySearch.org is the LDS Church's website. It used to be free for everybody, and you didn't have to sign in. It still is free, however, now they require that you have a sign-in. So you can still sign up for a free account, you just have to get a password. Let me figure out what mine is here. Did this come up? So as you guess, Family Search has been used by millions and millions of people working on their family history. Have you guys used Family Search before?
Yes.
Best records. They have a
Say
lot-
again?
They have a lot of records, a lot of good
Yeah.
records.
I didn't know it was LDS.
Yeah, it was started by the LDS Church. If I can get connected to the internet here. Did I do this twice? Am I doing something wrong?
NHPL.
I'm connected. I'm connected to the internet.
Well, if you're just on the regular, it might not be as fast. But if you connect to the meeting room, it's a password.
Yeah, I think that's what I'm on.
Oh, okay.
Well, I apologize for this taking so long. That's not even let me type that. Oh, okay. Isn't technology wonderful?
When it works.
Yeah,
When it works.
only when it works. We're getting there, I can see stuff. So this is the basic, well, I'm still on here. Sorry. Let me. Don't tell me I have to close out of these. It's not letting me do this here. I thought I minimized it earlier, but I tell you what, let's do, let me close this out. This is aggravating. Sorry, my computer's giving me a bunch of messages here. Not responding, not responding. So I tell you what, while we're waiting for all of this to take place, we're going to go over with this. So these are 8 rules for properly recording names in genealogy. Take it, Terry. So we'll start with number 1 here. It says record names in their natural order. And it says record names in their natural order, first, middle, and last name or their surname. Using full names makes lineage easier to trace. If a middle name is unknown, you may use an initial if you have one. The name should be written just as they would appear on a birth certificate or spoken aloud upon introductions. So you'd use the full name. And then they say, suggestion is to record surnames in capital letters. All right? And the reason for that is, if you have a surname like, say, James, and you have John James, you know immediately that John's his first name, James is his last name because it's capitalized. So they recommend, of course, it's a matter of preference, I guess, and not an absolute 100% rule, but they highly recommend that your surnames are in capital letters. All right, number 3. It says, use maiden names for women. It says, always enter a woman's maiden name in parentheses if you have it. So, if you have a name like Mary, let's say Coons, K-U-N-N-S, you could enter that name that way. That way you know it's that person's maiden name. Now, the next time they get married, or if they get married, first marriage would go there. I don't know. Brown would go here. You know, you always put the most recent marriage at the end of the name. So depending on how many times she's been married, she may have a lot of different last names. And the reason I mention that is, does anybody know when the Social Security system came into effect in America?
1930.
Yeah, it was either 33 or 36. So before then, if you were a woman and your husband died, if you weren't rich or you didn't have a business, you usually got remarried because you had no other means of support. So be expecting that when you do your family history research is usually women remarried quite a bit. I was tracing one of my ancestors in South Dakota, and come to find out she was married 5 times. After she had married my relative, the Sunderland, he died, but they had, I think, 6 kids before he died. But then she got remarried and remarried and remarried. And yeah, she was married 5 times. A couple of the people that she got married, and then the husband went on a business trip, never came back. He was gone. So yeah, they had to have some means of support. And so some people got married quite a bit. If you don't have the maiden name, then they recommend that you just put parentheses with nothing in And that tells people that you don't have a maiden name for this person. You don't know what it is. So that's kind of what they suggest. It says record all previous names, and we just talked about that. If you have more than one husband, enter the first middle name parentheses as you normally would. You would then record all the surnames in order. Okay, nicknames. Nicknames are kind of a pain in the rear. I'll call it that. My relatives out in Pennsylvania, first time I met them, I went out there to meet these people, and there was 9 kids from this family. Each one of them had a nickname. And I mean, it wasn't a simple nickname either. I mean, the guy's name was, his real name was Walter, and his nickname was Bun, you know? And so you not only had to memorize their real names, you know, and their family, but their nicknames in their family as well. But nicknames, you should include a nickname in a quote. Well, let's see, like, so maybe his real name is Harry, but his nickname was Bud. So that's how you would write it.
If we had numerous, would you just keep adding them?
Nicknames?
Yeah.
Yeah, you just keep adding quotes. I mean,
Okay.
each one of them would have their own separate quotes. If they had another nickname, it'd be here, and
Yeah.
another one
The
there.
interesting thing about nicknames is that sometimes on legal records,
Yeah, the
they
census.
go by their nickname
Yeah,
and not their real name, so it does cause lots of confusion.
yeah.
Fortunately, when I was doing mine, I have my great-grandparents had Paul, Caroline, Amanda, William, and Henry. They all had nicknames, and they all went by their nicknames, and half the time on the legal records, it was on their nicknames and not their real names. Now, Caroline actually was named after my great-grandmother, and her name was Wilhelmina Pauline Caroline. That's where Caroline came, only the German spelling is K, and she went by C. So sometimes she went by all 3 names, and trying to trace her lineage was a real challenge because she went by all names.
There are so many nicknames for Elizabeth. There's
Yeah.
Lizzie, Liz.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Um,
I've also had some relatives in Pennsylvania that the guys would have female nicknames.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, so you'd have Bud or Pete, but his nickname would be Jane.
Why?
Just a family joke.
Are you kidding? Is boy named Sue?
Yeah. Stinky.
So Jessica, I don't know what the problem is here, but it's not displaying the internet. Is that a common problem, do you know? I don't know. I closed out the slideshow. I thought, well, maybe that was hanging it up.
I've never added nicknames because I thought they'd be so out there that they just confuse issues.
What?
But the census are always nicknames.
Well, even my great-grandmother, her name was Wilhelmina, and she went by
Something's
Fanny.
happening.
And all the records have her under Fanny.
Go figure. Oh, and then they name them after grandmother, mother,
Oh,
daughter. You
You
have
guys have a
3
computer with you?
Lizas.
3 names, 3 generations all named the same.
Oh.
That will drive you crazy.
Yeah.
And see.
One of my relatives married a woman. She died. They named her daughter the same. He remarried another one named Mary. It was Mary. And they had a daughter, and they named her Mary. So
Yeah.
there's like 4 Marys in this one guy's life, and you don't know who's who.
Well, Germans, for a long time, named the first male after the father,
Where's my, what?
Your menu, like,
and
Which menu you do?
there's an international ancestry,
to.
and it's expensive. And now, if you go to Twin Falls and get on their system there, they have the international one.
So you don't usually.
And I traced my family back to 1550. And sure enough, I ran into that. Every single firstborn male was named
Yeah, this kind of thing.
Frank.
Like a bigger menu.
or Frederick.
Yeah.
And so the only way I could keep it straight, because it was all in German, the only way I could keep it straight was I could follow it only by the wife's name.
I'll see if I can figure this out.
Because, yeah, every generation, the son was named Frederick. So,
Then there was one that was talking about too, like, if you had a baby and you gave it this name, if the baby dies, then the next baby gets that same
I think it's
name.
the same name, yeah,
Mhm.
I've seen that.
mhm.
Also, don't move it on here to number 6. It says include alternate names. If a person is known by more than one name, perhaps due to adoption or a non-marital name change, include all alternate names in parentheses after the surname. Clarify this with AKA, in other words, otherwise known as, or also known as, before the full alternate name so that anyone reading your chart understands that the following is an alternate name. And they give an example there of William Tom Lake, AKA William Tom French. So if they did have an alternate name, that's what you would do. Also include alternate spellings of names. If your surname has changed the spelling over time, my last name, supposedly coming over to America, was Sunderland, Land, and then my relative supposedly changed it in Pennsylvania to Lin. Yeah, so
Okay.
sometimes. And any peculiarities, always write or use notes as needed when recording your family tree. Potentially confusing, should be explained in the record for clarity. If you have a female ancestor whose birth name happened to be the same as her husband's surname, briefly note why you have entered the same last name twice for her. Otherwise, people may assume that you made a mistake or you've misunderstood the information. So you kind of want
So make a
to
note.
explain that a little bit in there.
My daughter married a Clark and I was a Clark.
Nice, nice.
Yeah, it could sound confusing in a record like that, I guess.
Getting back to the spelling, a lot of times immigrants coming from Europe would change
Oh,
the
yeah.
spelling of their name just to make it sound more American
Yeah.
than where they were from the old country, so.
Hmm.
And they just at will do it, like my grandfather decided to change an A in Freilich to Froelich,
Uh-huh.
and his brother kept the A. My husband's family, they were O'Duggins, and they dropped the O when they came, and then his father dropped one of the G's. It's just whatever they want to do.
Well, excuse me, because I'll repeat this. Last time I said that a very famous guy was German and his last name was Kuster. They changed it to Custer,
C-U-S-T.
so,
Hmm.
of course, that was George Armstrong. But anyway, so, yeah, when
He
his,
changed it himself or his?
no, his grandfather changed it.
Oh.
So, but when he was born, it was C, but originally it was K from Germany, so.
Nice. Well, we still can't get this website to come up for some reason, I don't know what it's doing, but. So we'll move on with the notes. So these are the basic record types that we have. We have family records. When they talk about vital records, they're talking about usually birth, marriage, and death. Which, Frank, can you hand those out, or maybe?
Yes.
So what we're passing out here is each state is different on when they started recording births, marriages, and deaths. And of course, naturally, if you're on the East Coast, or maybe I should say East Coast over here, if you're on the East Coast, it was a lot earlier, you know, that we started recording these things. But as the immigration moved west, you find these dates being pushed back and pushed back and pushed back, to where if you have a relative that was born in, say, 1860, well, maybe the state that you're in, they didn't record births until 1870. And then there's not going to be a record of a birth for that person in that state. Census records are good. People have used census records for a long, long time, and I'll be covering those next month in our meeting next month. Books. Sometimes people call these mug books or books. A lot of times they'll write a history of the county, right? They'll say the history of Clayton County, Iowa. And they'll try to sell the book. The thing about a lot of those mug books is that they went out, and what they were trying to do was they were trying to sell the book before it was printed. And so they come up to a family or whatever, and they say, hey, we're doing this book, the history of Clayton County, and would you like to contribute, you know, $10? And if you contribute $10, then, you know, we'll put this biography in there about you and your family, you know, blah, blah, blah. Well, if your family was like my family, they were dirt poor, didn't have anything, they wouldn't get put in the book. So when the book came out, the history of Clayton County, your ancestor's not in there, and you're sitting there going, I know this person moved here, you know, in 1855. Why isn't he in this book? Well, it's because he didn't contribute to the writing of the book or the cost of the book. So it's not as though they weren't there. It was just...
I'm sorry, question.
Sure.
On this vital records chart, why does it stop after Missouri? What about the state's alphabet?
They're not on the other side? They're on the
Oh,
other.
I'm sorry, there's 2 columns.
Yeah, there you go. I was going to say, it should be on the other side. But,
Never mind.
but that'll give you an idea of if there's going to be a birth, marriage, death record for that particular place. Newspapers are good, but let me tell you something about newspapers. Newspapers early on, they would record a death announcement. Okay, if your relative died, they would have a death announcement. You know, Sid Jones died last Tuesday. You know, working on his farm. You know, whatever. And they may have something about services. Services will be held. Blah blah blah. But that's about all they put in the newspaper early on. The only exception to that would be if your relative was famous. If your relative was famous, then they would put a blurb in the newspaper about, you know, where they were born, who their parents were, you know, and they'd be a little bit like an obituary. As time progressed and newspapers got more advanced, then they started putting in pretty good obituaries, right? And you can go to some of these old newspapers in even the 1870s, 1880s, and you can see a pretty good obituary of, you know, it's a gold mine, right? His parents were this, and, you know, they had these kids, and, you know, these people attended the service, and blah, blah, blah. So they were really good. But now when you get into about the 1970s and 1980s, the price for obituaries started going up. And now to put in an obituary in a paper about that much is about $600, $600, $800. And so a lot of families are going, we can't afford that. And so what's happened now with obituaries is normally people that die today, when they die or pass away, the family buys a funeral service from a funeral company, right? What's the name of the one over here?
Ross.
And as part of that, depending on the package that they buy, they will post the obituary on their website. It could be for as little as 6 months, it could be a year, it could be 5 years, just depending on the package that the family buys with that. But then after that, that obituary is gone. So it's not like the old obituaries where I could go back in 1870 and find an obituary of this person. That's not the case today. So it's kind of a sad state with obituaries because they're going away, just because the price of things have gotten. But we'll cover newspapers, and there's quite a few different websites that you can find newspapers on. Church records are an excellent source if you know the denomination of your people, you know, and you know where they were at. That's always a great source for that. Cemetery records, land and property records, court records, military records, immigration, natural records, and then DNA. Of course, DNA is the newest technology out there, right? And I am not a great person on DNA because I can't talk to it, but there are people out there that really understand DNA and can really tell you what you're looking for out there. Of course, you guys have seen all the DNA tests. Pick one and go with it. That's all I can say. I mean, they're all just about the same. The only thing is, some of these bigger companies, they have a bigger database. So the results of their DNA is going to be a lot more accurate than some of the smaller companies because their databases aren't that big. So those are all things we're going to be talking about, though, as the weeks go along here.
Where's the best place? Where do you go exactly to find out military records?
Probably the best site would be Fold 3. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, Fold 3, National Archives,
What was the first thing?
Fold 3.
Fold?
That is-
FOLD.
That is a subscription service, and I think it's what, $10 a month?
I don't know.
'Cause I have Ancestry, and I came in on a deal where I got Ancestry, Fold 3, and access to one of the newspaper subscriptions for $50 a month.
So if you're familiar with folding of the flag, what do you think the third fold represents? Military service. So that's why they call the website Fold 3.
So Fold 3 at where?
It's just fold3.com,
Oh, .com.
Yeah, it's all by itself.
and I think that individually you can subscribe to it. I think it's like $10 a month. It's not very expensive.
They would have all the Purple Heart records.
Yeah, they would have, of course,
I
there is
thought my dad
also,
got one.
if you have somebody with Purple Heart,
Yeah?
there is a special organization called the Purple Heart Organization. And I've never used it, but my understanding is they have a record online of all the recipients of the Purple Hearts for every war.
Okay.
Just
And
like
that's
just like there's one for Medal of Honor recipients, same thing. You can go to, just put in Medal of Honor recipients and they're by state.
Mhm.
All the Medal of Honor recipients from that state.
Okay. Because my dad had a Purple Heart, but nobody, he wouldn't talk about it. Nobody knows anything about it.
Well, that's typical. Most veterans from wars don't talk about it.
It's in the Philippines, that's all I know.
But no, if you had a Purple Heart, there is an organization with the Purple Heart, and I know that they do have ones online, all the Purple Heart recipients.
So are any of you veterans or married to a veteran?
Yeah.
Okay, because there's a website out there called Military One Source. Source, S-O-U-R-C-E. MilitaryOneSource.com, I think it is, but .com. Any veterans is entitled to go to this website. You need to register for an account and get a password. The only problem with this website is the password expires every 60 days. And so, yeah, so you gotta go every 60 days and change the password. However, what they have in their library is, for veterans, they have Ancestry.com, Fold 3, I don't think My Heritage is in there, but it may be. And maybe Heritage Quest, different databases that you can get for free at home if you're a veteran. So just something to think about. Is there a problem with my computer?
And I'm trying to find just where the mirror is. That's what we're doing.
And by the way, Full 3 will give you free information during, for example, July 4th weekend. Full 3 was free. Usually do it on Memorial Day, Veterans Day.
And what was the
July
third
4th.
one you mentioned, Heritage what?
Heritage, well, there's My Heritage, and then there's Heritage Quest.
Quest.
There's two different websites there. One's My Heritage, and one's Heritage Quest.
You know, Civil War is Soldiers and Sailors. There's a website for soldiers and sailors during the Civil War.
Let's see, what is there any
So if
way-
you've got any relatives from the Civil War,
on
that's a
there,
good
Yeah.
website.
if you go on-
So what's that called?
Soldiers and Sailors.
Oh,
Because we can
okay.
plug my slideshow and plug
Soldiers
one
and
of yours on
sailors.
there. Sorry about the technical difficulties here. So let's start talking a little bit about family records. We'll just keep moving along. How many family stories have you all heard as far as things that happened with your family that once you start researching, you find that aren't really quite true?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. So
Okay.
families have a tendency to embellish things, you know.
There's a lot of old people turning over in their graves these days, I think.
Yeah.
Nothing's
Yeah.
secret anymore.
When I just recently did the Crown side, and I sent a copy of all my work and a binder to everybody. And about 3 days later, I got several irate phone calls saying, "What you put in there wasn't true." So I'm sorry it is, especially about my great aunt Mandy or Amanda. The family story she had three, truth was, she did have 3 husbands. But the family story, when she didn't bother to get any of them married, and she was buried in Billings with all 3 of them together, which wasn't true.
Oh,
And so, you know, everything about Mandy was totally blown out of the water, because there was this famous long story about her. And so, yeah, I
Yeah.
made a lot of people unhappy because I had marriage certificates of all 3 husbands. So, and one of them, on the fine grave there, if you notice, would be her son Marvin Callahan. He's one of her sons, and he had, the amount of information on that obituary is great, because it gave me all kinds of other names that I didn't know
yeah,
about.
this one in here.
And so you can track down all those people,
Right.
and,
If they tell the truth.
well,
True.
I found in ours they
that's
lied.
true,
Yeah.
because on Mandy's obituary, it said that the Crones came to Montana in 1908. That's not true, they got here in 1912 to Montana. So it's not, everything on there is not true, but anyway. When she gave that, obviously when she wrote that, or whoever wrote it, wasn't quite sure as to when they showed up, but
Yeah.
anyway. But even that you can't trust entirely, so.
We found somebody that happened to be raised by a grandparent that we were told was a parent. And then the real parent had him illegitimately, and he wasn't listed in the obituary whatsoever, which is what we got to questioning. Why wasn't he listed? And when we went back to a great-great-granddaughter, found out that he was illegitimate. She went on to have a family, the grandparents raised him, went to the war, and when the birth certificate came out, it all hit the fan.
Yeah.
And, oh my gosh, so his last name really isn't what it should have been, but they chose to ignore, the birth certificate has his real father's name on it.
Yeah.
And then where it says legitimate, it said yes, and then it was crossed out and wrote no, but he never went by that father,
That's father's name?
so he never went by that father's name, even though it's
Yeah.
on his birth certificate.
Yeah, yeah.
He went by the grandparents.
There was
last
one
name.
story that I could not verify, but it would make sense to me. My great-grandmother, because when they came to America, they settled in Birmingham, Alabama. And the family story, the reason why they left was my great-grandmother didn't like all the blacks there.
Oh,
I could never verify that, but it
yeah,
was right
And that
after the
was very
Civil
typical
War,
back
so
then.
it makes sense, but
yeah.
anyway, one of many interesting, colorful stories.
Well, I called my mother down on lying about her age when she got married. And she said, no, I didn't. I said, you were not 21, Mother.
Yeah.
And she said, how do you know I said that? I said, because your signature has never changed.
Women always lie about their age, so if.
That's why I said, there's a lot, she's 94, so she's facing this stuff.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of people that are gone now, and they got away with whatever they wanted
Oh,
to tell
yeah,
you.
Yeah. So moving on here, it talks about family documents and artifacts. They may be totally unique. You know, you may have some artifact that you want to record. And I will get to that. There's a heirloom or heirloom record thing that you can write, saying, hey, you know, this is where this thing came from. This is the provenance. And, you know, blah blah blah. But that'll be in a future class. Never be afraid to ask for copies of documents held by more distant relatives. Okay. A lot of them will give you copies. They won't give you the original, but they'll give you copies. They also have now these little scanners. I usually take them to courthouses with me, but they'll scan. You can just turn them on and you run them right over the document, and it'll make a digital copy of that document. And you can get different size of cards, SD cards and stuff for them to hold information. So those are kind of nice too. They make a big thing about getting photos scanned and film transferred to digital, which is always a good idea if you can do that. Store original photos and artifacts and archival materials, which are getting harder to find these days. Staples, I know, does sell archival grade of like photo packets, or archival grade of just regular binder protectors, you know, sheet protectors. But you have to search for them, and you have to really watch. They're labeled. They'll say archival quality or archival grade on it. And I use that to put my pictures in. I don't never write on my pictures. I never write on the back of them or anything. I put them in, and then I put a number with it. And then that number, I'll have another program where I'll write that number and then write all the information about that picture on there. But I don't usually write on my photos. I do tell everybody though, if you have photos, label it somehow. I inherited my cousin's stuff, genealogy stuff, and there's photos in there. I don't know whose family they are. You know, I've got one photo of a farmhouse in either Kansas or Colorado. It's got about 30 or 40 people in it. I don't know who these people are, if they're my relatives or if they're his wife's relatives, you know. I don't know, because nobody ever bothered to label it. You know? And of course, there's a variety of online resources that can help you date photos. If you're wondering when this photo was taken, there are a lot of online things that can help you with dating photos. And you'll probably, in your genealogy endeavors, run into a program somewhere where somebody's giving a presentation on dating men's fashions or dating women's fashions and all the different fashions that were in existence at the time. Moving on to vital records. Birth, marriage, and death records are issued by a civil authority. I think, is that on the sheet there? I don't remember if that was on that sheet or not. Is it, Frank?
Now, let's see. Vital, officially kept U.S. United States.
I don't know if I kept a copy of it.
What are you looking for?
Just to see if it lists what agency, usually it's a government agency that's gonna list those. Why don't
It's
you
in
just
my
set it on the
experience,
corner right there
you
by
go
fire?
to the county,
Oh, okay.
the county which they were in. Now, sometimes the county's changed over the years. For example, when my family first went to Missouri, Missouri had 14 counties. I don't know how many counties there are today in Missouri, but there's 14.
The family history.
So it gets a little complicated, but you have to find out what county
No,
that
family
town is
search
in.
level.
And usually, when the counties combined or split apart, they do really good at keeping records. So you just have to make sure you know what county it is, because usually the county is the one that keeps all the records. I'm looking for a death
Here, put it here.
certificate from one of my
Slide this one over.
great aunts who only lived to be 11 years old. She was born in Yakima, Washington. And here's one thing that you sometimes run into. The county, I think it's Yakima County, they will not give you any birth certificates whatsoever because they're afraid of ID theft. So there are some counties that will not give you any, they'll tell you, but they will not give you the actual paperwork, copy of one, because they're afraid of ID theft.
Not even a copy.
So,
Yeah, I was
The
doing
one- the
research, I
one-
was doing research in South Dakota, and I went right up to the county records person and said, hey, I'm here doing family research, I'd like to get copies of this. He said, have a nice day, I can't help you out, because
That's a shame.
it's a knee-jerk reaction to identity theft, and a lot of these counties just,
I have a 6:30 meeting to get to.
oh,
Sorry.
that's okay.
I hope to be back again, first Wednesday?
First
of
Wednesday of
each
the
month?
month, yep,
yep.
Thank you so much.
3rd of August,
So you do have to pay attention to what county.
yeah.
Usually the counties will give you the information, because I've had good luck with counties in Montana, especially Muscle County, Yellowstone County. That's where my family really settled, were those two counties, and they've been very, very cooperative as far as just giving me access to whatever I wanted. Yellowstone County, it was interesting, they had this big, in the county office, they had this big, huge room of all the transactions and all the books going back to, about 1880 or 1890 when the county was formed. You have to dig through all this stuff, but sometimes it's worthwhile. But they will give you access to it if you just, most of the time they're very cooperative, but once in a while they're picky. But that's the best place to go to get records like birth certificates. If they were married in that county, then you can get that information. So whatever county they were buried in, or married, whatever, that's the county to go to. So
Yeah, and a lot of places like where I was told this in South Dakota, they said, well, why don't you try the research library at the college? And so I went over there at the research library, and they did have a lot of good records over there, outside of the county, but what can you say? But they're usually, birth, marriage, and death, usually issued by a civil authority somewhere. Early records do exist, particularly in the East Coast, New England area. Most west of the Mississippi normally begin after 1880 in time frame. So again, most of this information though you can find online. They'll tell you online, hey, we have marriage records or birth records starting, this or this.
Where your chart was too.
Say again?
You had that on your chart too.
Okay. Let's see. Oh, what was I gonna say? East Coast. When you get to your research back into the earlier years and you're tracing your family to the East Coast, whatever it be, keep in mind that in the East Coast, the records are normally kept in the town halls. Unlike out here where most of the records are kept in a county courthouse. It's a little bit different situation back east. They keep a lot of the birth, marriage, death records in the city halls. So you pretty much have to know what city your relative came from back east in order to get access to those records. And I don't know exactly what cities my family came from, so I have a hard time finding those records back there. Okay, moving on here, we got family search to come up here, finally. So across the top of family search, you have family search, family tree search, memories, get involved in activities. So this is kind of the main menu, what that's pulled up on here. Like I say, they want you to sign in or create an account. Everybody needs to create an account on family search. So yeah, you're gonna have another ID and password, but you just have to kind of live with it. So to search, we'll hit search here. And let's see, I'm sorry. I thought I shut that up. We'll search records. And it's probably going to ask me to sign in. Yep. Because they always want me to sign in. I got to get back to my password. All right. If you're like me, you got a sheet of this long, all your passwords. Well, they didn't have me sign in yet. Well, let me. Who does anybody want to search for? Any names?
Okay, William.
William. Hold on.
Crone. K-R-O-N-E.
K-R-O-N-E.
Billings, Montana.
I'll put Montana here. Billings. Here.
In 1920.
Is that approximate or just that 1 year then?
Well, I happen to know that's the year. That's the exact year.
Okay, they're gonna look for an exact year.
It's not going anywhere. Let's close this. There we go. I was looking for that button. So now it's searching, doing all the searching buttons.
Now you've got your sign in.
Now I got to sign in. So let me sign in. I normally just sign in right away and get it out of the way. Just wanted to show you what happens if you don't. So we're signing in. Now it should give me some results. I'm never going to save that password. No results found.
Oh, you misspelled Montana.
I did? Oh.
Montana.
You mean there's no Y in it?
There's no Y in it.
I gotta find the delete key here. Backspace, escape. Well, do it this way. Is that better?
Yeah.
Something's happening, something's happening.
Oh, there we go.
So along the
Oh my
left
God,
side,
they got my father on there.
so on the left side, these are the results. So this is the people that are coming up under that name. And then these are the records, of course. This is saying this is a obituary. This is a find a grave record. So you just scroll down to whatever you want to use there. that all there is on this page?
Probably.
I can't see anything more, yeah. And if you wanted to work on that or search it, you could just go over here, click on his name. And then that should take you to,
No, take it to find a grave.
view record. Well, this is Genealogy Bank obituary. So it's pulling up that, should be pulling up that obituary. And then if you wanted to see the actual image, you could go over here and it says check image availability on the left-hand side and click on it, and it should pull it up if it's available. But that's basically how, what's it say? Visiting one of our partner sites, okay, so it's not going to bring it up. I don't know why I can't scroll down here on this computer.
Try moving it all the way to the
To the right?
Yeah, there you go. Now you got the, see the bar light up there?
I do.
And now you can, there, it's lit
Oh,
up. Now you can scroll down.
Good to see it. So a lot of the records now, the genealogy has gotten source specific. It gives you this, cite this record information right here. And so what you could do is copy citation, you would copy that, it would put it into your clipboard, and then when if you're working on a genealogy program, you can just go over and paste it right into your genealogy program, and then your source documentation is all done for you, which is pretty nice. So on this particular record, this is sons and daughters and wife and yeah, and grandchildren down here on the bottom.
Wives and
Yeah.
the kids.
So it gives you a lot of information that you can use to go in your searches there.
Oh my goodness.
Say again?
I didn't realize that some of this, they had some of this stuff on my father.
Yeah. Okay, where am I at here? So that's basically family search. Searching records on family search. Usually you get quite a few. Usually you get like 40 or 50.
I get confused in there on how to change records and update them and stuff when you get into the individuals. And if somebody has misinformation, like they showed my mother was deceased and she's not deceased, I don't know how to change things like that.
In family search? Tell you the truth, I don't know how either.
Okay, because you can update them, but I don't want to update something and cause problems.
You can on Find a Grave.
No, mine's in here.
In family
But
search?
Yeah.
I'm not aware that you can do it on Family Search either.
Yeah, I've added people and done all that, added all
Yeah.
my kids and stuff.
I was trying to get back to the main screen. I guess I could hit search again.
I put in a relative that I knew of, and all at once the tree was just like filled out.
Oh, yeah?
Because it connected to another
Yeah.
person doing the research on family.
Oh, that's really cool.
It was cool. It was like, wow.
Now, was that through
So
Family Search?
automatically I was back to 1555.
Was that through family search or was that through
Family
Ancestry?
Search.
It wasn't
This is
Ancestry.
the only one I have. Family
Oh.
Search. My brother does Ancestry.com,
Uh-huh.
but, so we exchange information.
Because that's pretty common on Ancestry where all of a sudden they.
Oh, well, that happened in here, big
Oh,
time.
really? Yeah, I suppose if you connect up, it will allow you to do that. But that's basically family search. I also wanted to cover with you Find a Grave, so let's go over to Find a Grave. Has everybody used Find a Grave? Gotta make sure I spell things right.
They should be pretty accurate, huh? The graves?
Well, okay, Find a Grave.
They're not?
the two websites kind of started simultaneously here. We had Find a Grave and Billion Graves.
What is it?
Billions of graves.
Billion Graves.
Billion graves.
Yeah, they both started kind of simultaneously. Billion Graves was more geared toward celebrities or people that were in politics and their burials. Find a Grave was just your average Joe, you know, whatever you wanted to search for with that. As the years progressed, well, first off, let me tell you, Find a Grave, the way people posted in Find a Grave is they went around a cemetery and they took pictures of gravestones. So guess what happened if your relative didn't have a gravestone? You weren't in Find a Grave, all right? Unless, as the years progress now, if people know that this is in there, if this person's grave is in there, they can post on Find a Grave and not have a gravestone. And you'll see that too. You'll pull up Find a Grave listings, and there'll be a picture there that says no stone. The person didn't have a stone, but yet somebody went in there, created a web page for this individual for that. So that's kind of how it works now with Find a Grave. So with Find a Grave along the top, up here is basically your main menus once again. To search for somebody and to bring up this page that's here right now, normally you would just hit this Find a Grave. Or you can search by memorials. When you find a person that has a page, they're going to have a certain Find a Grave memorial ID number, okay? And that's their number for that grave. And you can search by, if you have that number, you can just pull that up and then enter the number down here, hit search, and it'll bring the page right up. Or you can search cemeteries. Let's say you want to search Clayton County, Iowa, and you can pull up all the cemeteries in Clayton County, Iowa, and it'll bring a listing of those up, and you can search through that. Or if you have famous people, you're doing that. Or if you want to send them money to keep the website up, you can send them money and do that as well. So let's search for somebody here. Who do we want to search for? Anybody in particular? I'll tell you what I'll do. Let me pull up Benjamin Baird. He's my third great grandfather. Let's see, let's go to more search options because I do have his number. So these are more search options. You see these two rows that just popped up here? On the bottom, I do know his memorial ID number. And so I'm just going to put that number in for him here.
Is that a number that you got from Find a Grave, or did you
Yes.
do you get that number from other sites?
No, this is
It's
a
on
Find a Grave.
Oh, okay.
This is a Find a Grave number.
So you wanted to use the memorial ID unless you already have been in Find a Grave and already had found it.
If you guys look, I passed out some copies of Find a Grave. Under Second Lieutenant Richard U. Grier, the first section here, it's got a memorial ID number, which is 567 58567.
So let me scroll down to the search here. I put in that number right there, and I'm going to hit search, and it should bring up his web page. Maybe. Here we go. Guess where I got that picture of him at? Hold on.
They're all so lovely. Back in the 1800s, I noticed.
What did I do here?
Oh, it was like you just closed it out.
Did I?
Hmm?
Oh, this is aggravating.
Click the circle at the bottom.
Can I hit the Chrome, or which
Yeah.
one are you using?
Yep, that one. Just click that one. There you go.
Let me get back there again.
Sucking on lemons.
Huh? I know. Don't smile for anything. My good
Yeah,
granddaughter
number
has to
back
look
in
there,
there.
she's 10. Why were people not allowed to smile in pictures way back when?
Didn't it take so long to take the
Yeah.
picture?
You've gotta sit still for so long until,
Yeah.
while the camera works on it.
Yeah.
And so,
I just assumed.
It's thinking, it's thinking.
Nobody wanted to hold a smile that long.
I told her, if you lived in Texas and you had to wear those clothes, would you be smiling? It's hot.
So here we have his birth information, his death information, where he's buried, and his memorial ID number. And if you wanted to, you could view the source. In other words, who put this information on the webpage, right? 90% of the time, the people that post these on the webpage, they have no connection to the person that's involved here. It's just some volunteer that's going out and putting this information up on the website. So, but occasionally, you know, I've viewed that source, and then I've got a name, and I'll show you here in a second. You can communicate with that person, and I've asked them, hey, are you related to, because maybe they may be my cousin, I don't know.
Yeah.
And sometimes they'll say, yes, I'm related, but most times they say, no, I'm just a volunteer at the cemetery doing stuff. And then other people don't want you to message them at all. So here you have that.
What I
See
also
what's
did
going on here.
What I also did with that source is I actually have a Find a Grave account
Sure.
and put my family people there. I've contacted that source and said, hey, if you're not related, can I take over your
Sure.
grave and put it in my group? Because
Yeah.
that's my grandfather kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah.
And
The
they-
rules are they have to do it. If somebody else has
Yeah.
control of that site and you are
Related.
related, they
Yeah.
have to give it to you.
Yeah, so it's been, they've been wonderful with that. So
Yeah,
it's-
sure.
Now, sometimes you get into fights with people over that. Because I've had fights with people that for example, my great-grandfather's buried in Roundup, and a woman had control of that site. I said, I'm a relative, I want my name on it, and she and I went around for 3 months on it. To the point where there's a number or email or something that you can actually contact Find a Grave and file a complaint. I communicated her and I told her, if you don't give it to me, then I'm gonna file a complaint with Find a Grave. And suddenly I got control of the site. Now, I think, don't they charge you $5? I think there's a charge
There could be now.
to switch. I don't remember, I think there
Now,
was.
you have to maintain it though,
Yeah.
going forward.
Yeah.
Yeah. So here's his number, and so like I say, Find a Grave has become such an important site for genealogy that a lot of the software programs now, they've included a Find a Grave number in the software. When you're putting people into your software, they'll have a Find a Grave ID number, and then you can put that number in that particular block, and then if you're doing work on your genealogy program, you can just click on that number and it'll take you right to this page. Without even opening up Find a Grave, it'll just go right directly to the page.
Yeah.
And if you remember, well, I don't know who was here last month, but I said on the family group sheets, I always put on the FAG number, the Find a Grave number, next to the person, because it's just such an important website these days for genealogy. But a lot of times you'll find information down here, depending on what people write in. If I go a little bit further down the page on Find a Grave, if I can get down
He's
there.
talking about putting that number on his employment search, right?
So here we have his parents, their information, his wife, his siblings, and their children, all on this website. And if they're in blue like this, like these are, you can just click on them and it'll take you right to that person's page, a web page on there.
That's where I'm talking about. If you click on that person and there's an error in there, there's a way you can fix it, but I don't want to mess it up.
Well, you can't fix it. Whoever has the authority for that site,
No.
they have to fix it.
think
Which
you have.
I have contacted one who had errors on one of my grandparents.
Yeah.
And they were great. She fixed it once I showed her what the proofs
Yeah.
were or whatever.
Well, it allowed me to put the correct information in, but then it wants a reason why I know that information. And I
Yeah.
simply said she's my mother.
Yeah.
Again, she's not deceased. And then somebody approves it, I think, but they take your information as you put it in. I
Oh,
thought that was
okay.
very strange for this place.
Yeah, you know, to my
Because you
knowledge, the
could
only
get
person that
garbage.
can, the only person that can change things on here is the person that has control of that, or owns that webpage. 9 times out of 10, if you call up some, or you send somebody a message that says, hey, I would like to take over this webpage, they're gonna say, you bet, here it is. It's yours now. I'm out from underneath it, so they're glad to get rid of it.
So
you know,
click
that's
on
a
one of
bunch
those
spend.
blue ones.
Okay, which one do you want?
I don't care.
All right, let's go to Martha Jane Hickox here. It's thinking, there you go.
Oh, and I'm sorry. Yeah, you're at Find the Grave. I forgot.
That's okay.
American, or the Family Search is where I thought
Oh.
that was taking you.
Okay,
Sorry.
so,
I see the suggest edits,
What?
the suggest edits at the
Yeah, I
bottom
saw
of those
that.
things.
yeah.
Then
That's right
maybe
here,
it's
suggest
password or
edits.
something.
Let's
I
see if
think
we
that a lot
can
of
view the
this-
source. You put that on, there you go, find a grave database and images. Talks a little bit about that. Details. Usually they say, usually they have a way to contact the person, but I don't see it on this one.
Maybe it's down.
I don't know, maybe it's up, I don't know. But you can find a ton of information here. I also wanted to show you another one of my relatives, because this is what Frank was talking about with obituaries a little bit. So to get back to the main screen here, I have to go back in the upper left-hand corner and hit Find a Grave. Go back here to Find a Grave, click on that, and then it should bring me back to the search page again, pulling up. Let me pull up this other person real quick. Maybe. I don't know why it's not letting me. There it is. It's hectic to get old. You need glasses. Gotta go down just a little bit to get to the search button. There it is. So, although they don't have a picture of the gravestone here, they do have obituary from the paper. And that gives you a ton of information, you know, on this person. Did you have a longer one, Frank?
Oh, yeah, I've got one. I passed it around. It's Marvin Callahan.
Do you have his number? Oh, yeah, it's right here. Well, that's his wire. Okay, Marvin Callahan. okay.
363.
And do you have the number?
Yeah,
Yeah, 363, 721,
yeah, hold on.
34.
I'm getting there.
Oh,
I'm just slow. Okay, 3637
yeah, 2134.
2134. All right, we'll check him out, Frank.
This is a big, long obituary. It's rare that you get one this long, but somebody did a really good job on Marvin.
Got a picture, is it down a little bit?
Yeah.
Is that it there?
Mm-hmm. It runs out of maybe you just click more, but on the second page, that's where all the other relatives and
Oh. So you can tell, you know, there's a lot of information here that you can get. I've also, on Find a Grave, I've seen it where they put family photographs up there of the entire family, which is kind of really nice if you don't have photo of this family group, boom, it comes in right there on Find a Grave. The other thing that's kind of nice about Find a Grave is that if you wanted to, let me see, I'm trying to think of where it's located. It might be under cemeteries. Let me just check something here real quick. Or did you want to talk anything more?
Well, no, what's also good about Find a Grave is it, go back to the other page, Terry, or the.
On Callahan?
On Callahan, for example.
Okay. Let me get back here. Which one was he?
363, wasn't it 363?
Yeah,
This one right here.
Okay. Well, if you scroll down here,
Okay, there's his page.
okay, if you look on the,
Yeah, I'm getting
there's,
it.
what's great is, okay, right here, so you see more Callahan memorials. So if you're looking for other relatives with Callahan, you can click on these and it'll pull up all the other Callahans in the area. So in this one, for example, if you're looking for other Callahans in Montana, you just click on there and you're gonna get every single Callahan buried in Montana on Find, if it's listed on Find a Grave, it'll be there. So it really helps your research as far as finding other Callahans that are related to him. And again, the Highland Cemetery, there are several Callahans that are buried that are relatives to Marvin, and it's all in one place. It really makes it easy to find.
The other thing you can do also, kind of in the same manner as that, is you can set up virtual cemeteries on Find a Grave. So in other words, let's say your granddad is buried in this cemetery in Missouri, and your great-great-granddad is buried in this cemetery in Montana, and your third great-grandfather is buried in this cemetery in Illinois. A virtual cemetery will put all those people into one cemetery so that you know exactly where everybody's buried at. You know, so you could put 50 or 100 people in a virtual cemetery, even though they're in different cemeteries, they're all in this one virtual cemetery, and you can find them all.
How do you create that on that?
That's what I was looking for. I think it's
Oh, okay.
under cemeteries here.
Or do you have to be signed in as?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you have to be
registered?
signed in.
Yeah, okay.
But,
Might be.
yeah, it's kind of nice. And they also let you do favorite cemeteries. If I signed in here, over on the right-hand side here, you would see that my family cemetery back in Pennsylvania is right up here, listed there.
And one interesting thing on this is new. Somebody put.
That's just
this-
advertising.
Oh, that's advertising? I thought it was part of the.
No,
Okay, so I thought I'd missed it.
no, it's just advertising.
so where do you start to group them? Did you say you did it already?
Did what?
Grouped cemetery, the virtual cemetery?
Well, that's what I was trying to find. She was saying that, and I might have to be signed in to be able to do it. Favorites, here's a favorite. You have a favorite. Where did it go? Oh, my virtual cemeteries. You see down here at the bottom?
Yeah.
There's nothing in here right now because I haven't signed in or anything.
So I think what you probably wanted to do, Terry, is if you're gonna put them in, you click on the
Yeah,
ad
put the ad
button on there.
Yeah, right there. And then you could name it whatever you want to do, name it after that. Let's take a look though at, let me see if I can.
And then you can add them probably with that memorial ID. To move people to your virtual cemetery, you just put in their ID numbers.
Yeah.
See, I've never done that, so
Yeah.
this is news to me, so.
Yeah. That's how
Yeah,
you
because
would
mine
do
was
it.
scattered.
That's cool.
For some reason, this page is looking a little bit different to me than normal. Oh, there we go. So let's say you want to look at, where is any of your relatives buried?
Pennsylvania.
I'm on,
What
I
county?
can tell you one, but I can't-
Clarion.
Clarion County, Pennsylvania. Let's try that, see what we get. and you'll see these suggestions pop up right below it. I always advise you click on those suggestions. Even if you've typed it out
Right.
in the box, the program works better if you use their suggestions. So let's go with Clarion County, Pennsylvania, United States right here. And sometimes you have to hit search, but normally you can just hit it. And it should come up with all the cemeteries in Clarion County. There you go. It talks about all the different cemeteries in Clarion County, Pennsylvania. So the next Saturday you don't have anything to do, you can search all the cemeteries in Clarion County. Clarion County, Pennsylvania. I'm only getting to the C's here though. Normally when you come down here, okay, there
No, there it is.
repopulates and it pulls up clear to Z.
Yeah, 'cause you're not-
Yeah. Yeah. So it just depends on what you want to do. All right, let's see. Oh, the other free website, I'm like, well, we don't have time to get to there today. So any questions on anything tonight? Anything,
Hopefully you figure out how to make a virtual cemetery.
yeah, they're nice to set up, because then all your relatives are right there in one spot, even though they're very different.
I mean, even though you can have the other names on there that may not be in that cemetery, you can click on them and it'll still take you to that other cemetery, but it's better if you have, maybe if you have that
Sure.
virtual cemetery.
Yeah.
And it also, that lets you see the movement of your family a
Oh,
little
yeah.
bit better.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Well, tomorrow, or the next month, we're gonna cover the land records, Bureau of Land Management records, I should say. If your relative homesteaded at all, or they bought property, you can look them up, see where they. I had a relative I was tracing, they had moved from Pennsylvania to Iowa, and I went to the land records site here, and this guy came up as owning property in South Dakota. And I'm going, you gotta be kidding me. There's no way, that they moved to South Dakota. Well, sure enough, they moved to South Dakota, and they were living out in South Dakota, so you just never know what you're gonna find. Okay, if there's no questions, I guess we'll see you next month. I think the meeting next month is on the 3rd of August, 5:30 to 7. That's a Wednesday.